you might not need any LLCs at all if you're a
Mm,
person that has no assets and you don't care about your credit, right? But that's probably not any of us, you know?
yeah.
Those of us that are out there that are, we at least probably have good credit because we know we need that for financing, right? And we probably maybe have anywhere between 1 to 5 properties. It's pretty typical, and those might be single family homes. And so then what we come into is like I say, well, okay, what do I need in terms of protection then? Well, definitely recommend you still have insurance. Remember, insurance is our best first line of defense. But we don't want to trust a profit seeking corporation to have our best interest at heart. It's not in the nature of what they are, right? They're really good at
Mhm.
getting the low dollar claims, but when things get expensive, their business model tells them to deny coverage, which leaves the
Mhm.
people suing you and in all kinds of headaches, unless you have asset protection put in place and that the LLC structure. So, what I recommend everybody do that's in the single family home space is to form a series LLC. As you can form it either Texas, Delaware, Nevada, or Wyoming. You can use it anywhere inside the United States based upon the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution. The same reason you can form Delaware LLCs in Delaware and use them everywhere else. The same reason you can form series LLCs in one state and use them everywhere too. And you want to form it in one of those 4 states because those are the only states that have charging order protection. Meaning that if I sue you, the individual, I can't get to your LLC. Which I know that sounds crazy. You would say, well, why would they ever have
Yeah.
any
That's
other
the whole
way?
point. Yeah.
But like there's states like California and many other states where they don't protect you from in that way. So you want to make sure where you form your LLC is just as important as what kind you form. And I just gave you the secrets just now.
Got it. And I've heard other attorneys talk about like very complex setups where like a corporation owns the LLC, and there's I think the whole reason for it is anonymity.
Hmm.
Do you recommend that, or is that overkill?
Well, we have a strategy in which what we use is types of what are called revocable grantor trusts. They're like anonymity trusts that are used like private property trusts or land trusts are all the same type of trust. They don't provide any protection on their own, but what they do allow you to do is to create anonymity. And it's passive for tax purposes. There's no bookkeeping, there's no anything. There's no yearly maintenance that you have to do for any of that. So what that means is you can actually form a series LLC in one of those 4 states, and then the net effect of it is that when you create the trust, like a trust that will own the LLC and the trust will own any of the underlying properties, you end up with complete anonymity. So, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. So it's very simple and easy to do it that way, and it keeps your costs down, among other
Okay,
things.
got it. Oh, interesting. Um, and it's the same trust that you would create for like estate planning, right? Like to in order to be able to pass your assets along, or is this separate trust?
From a legal standpoint, the technical answer is it is the same type of trust because it's a revocable grantor trust. But inside of a revocable grantor trust, there's hundreds of different kinds of trusts. Some of them are called
Got it.
private property trusts, some of them are called living trusts, some of them are called land trusts, and it depends upon what is going to be the function of that trust. So we also will have a revocable grantor trust, but designed in a way to be a living trust as part of your estate plan. So your estate plan and that living trust will actually own the entity structure of your series LLC and the anonymity pieces that are put in there, which will in turn own all of the underlying properties and assets like your brokerage account, extra cash you might have, your real estate, etc.
Got it. Okay, interesting. And then the Series LLC. I know a lot of people have questions about that. Like, what's the difference between a Series LLC and just a normal LLC?
It's free, baby. That's what's great about the Series LLC. You create one parent entity, so you have one entity
Hmm.
to file, one entity to maintain, and they can have an unlimited number of children underneath it. And each child is called a child series, just like human children, free to create. You don't got to do much to do that, right? And that you can create an unlimited number of them for free, and there's no additional filing fees and no additional entities to maintain when you do that. So that's what makes it ideal for the single family home investor, is because now With the Series LLC, for free, you can bucketize each asset and hold each asset anonymously and hold your whole company anonymously, and doesn't cost you anything extra to do it. So that way, if they ever come to sue you, it doesn't look like you own anything. If they ever come after any one of the properties, they can't find out that it's connected to any other properties, so that they're like, nah, I don't know if this
Mm,
guy's even worth suing at all. And if they do actually decide to sue, the most they can get to is one property, which means you're not, you're sitting there being like, okay, great, can I lose one property and still be okay in life? I definitely can. Contrast this to the people that are just owning everything inside of their own name. When they get sued, what the position they're in is, if this doesn't go right, I lose everything. It's
mm,
a very different
yeah,
circumstance.
yeah. And so for that, then it sounds like, do you have to have a separate business bank account for each one and a separate set of QuickBooks? Do you recommend, or
No, I
you
don't
can
do all
kind of
that. That's too much work. Yeah, what you
wow.
do is you just do a single set of books and a single bank account at the parent level, right?
Hmm.
And then inside of your books, just tag the income and expenses or classify that for each property, right? And that's really really simple to do. You're like, okay, cool. This is an expense for property A. This is income for property A, right? And you can do that in QuickBooks
Yeah.
really really simply. You can also do it in Excel. I mean, legally, you can actually just write all this stuff down on a piece of paper if you wanted to, and that technically is like a set of books, for what the court is concerned about. And if you do it that way, it's going to hold up in court. You're not going to have any piercing of the veil issues or anything like that. Um, and you should be, you'll be good to go.
Wow. Yeah, because I just always assume that you'd pierce the corporate veil if they're in the same bank account, or same set of books. That it all has to be so isolated.
Well, what they're trying to answer the question is are you operating these as separate businesses? And the way that I
Okay.
know that you're operating things as separate business, like you are separate from your business and the businesses are separate from each other, is if you can tell me about the money. What's the story about the
Mm,
money? And the story about the money is, well, you need to tell me each companies keep track of their money separate from each other, right? That's how you know how well a company is doing. Well, as real estate investors, we should be doing that anyway. How do I know
yeah.
what the ROI is on my property or my depreciation schedules or my expenses for taxes if I'm not tracking it throughout the year? I'm not doing my work to help my CPA, right? If I'm
Hmm.
not doing that. So you just do that, and then okay, so great. Now we're in front of the judge. He says, "Well, are you treating these as separate businesses?" You're like, "Yeah. Look, it's a separate, legal. I can show you the money. It's separate, right? And that I have it accounted for separately, and it doesn't matter. That's in the same, bucket of a bank account."
Got it. Okay. I imagine there's a lot of people listening that don't have it set up this way. They have individual LLCs. Do you recommend that they re just start a series LLC and then just quit claim their properties into it, or what do they do from here?
It can depend upon some of the expense issues that come into, like, what does it cost to maintain those entities every year, because what we're talking about is being able to get into a place where it's a lot cheaper to maintain, easier to maintain, easier for form
Yeah.
and function. So on that sense, I'm like, well, I mean, it's hard to answer, because I'd have to know more details about their case. One thing I do know is that for everybody that's making over $150,000 a year, my firm is actually so good at tax that it pays for all of the entity formation, all of the estate planning, all of like the tax strategy, tax filings, and everything. Because we just are so good at being able to save money at tax for, especially for real estate investors, because that's our real specialty, that comes into it. So that's what I usually tell everybody. I was like, if you're making good money, if you're not making any money, then you need to find the cheapest people you can possibly do, because you just need to figure out how to make more money, right?
Yeah.
But once you start making money, then the game shifts, and the game becomes like saving money on tax becomes a big win for you, right? Moving from a 30% tax bracket to a 10% is, $20 to $30,000 every year that you could be
Mm,
saving, right? And so that's why I tell everybody, it's like, it's worth coming and talking to us if you're making significant income above 150K per year as a household, because very likely there's a win in their force. It's going to make sense, um, to form a partnership.
yeah. Yeah, and I want to learn more about some of those tax savings opportunities. But I was curious on the entity protection side of things.
Hmm.
Obviously, a lot of real estate investors like to partner. It's pretty common practice in when you're investing, maybe one person has the money, the other person is going to do the sweat equity or has the deal. What's the best structure then for a partnership? Do you recommend then a separate LLC or just doing a joint venture, or how do you recommend people tackle that?
So it'll depend because um, most everybody is acquiring properties with some sort of financing in place, right? So we a lot of times what we have to do is say, well, how are you going to be getting the financing, right? So if you're looking inside of the multifamily space, you don't have any other option besides to form a single purpose LLC in the state where the asset is located, and you'll have to do that for the financing institutions to be cool with it, and then you'll work from there about, great, how am I going to split this up with my partners? Okay, you're going to be a 50% member interest, I'm going to be 50%. My 50% member interest is going to go to my series LLC, which is my asset holding company, which also happens to own my brokerage account and owns my single family homes and whatever, right? So I have these
Mm-hmm.
like satellite LLCs that I have with partners that own the apartment complex, right? And in that sense, for every new apartment complex, we're going to form a new LLC because that's what the financing institution wants to see, right? Now, we do have some clients that come through that said, hey, what we're going to do is, me and this partner, we're actually going to go and we're going to go buy a bunch of single family homes together over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. And so in that circumstance, what ends up happening is we'll form a single series LLC. And with the series LLC that we have, we will then create just a partnership in the series LLC. They'll typically will acquire the properties and with their personal name to be able to take advantage of the conforming loans that have cheaper interest rates, and then they'll deed the property into a land trust that's owned by the series LLC, which is the same thing that happens with an individual, but here it's just going to be inside of like a partnership. So it's actually the asset that determines what entity structure you're going to use. And then we split the ownership interest of that entity structure into each individual's asset holding company.